This is Kentucky Afield Radio. This is Ron Rohde, Kentucky Afield's first host back in 1953. Now, I'm proud to present Charlie Baglin.
There are fish in Kentucky's water that will literally jump into the boat with you. Maybe you've seen this firsthand. Maybe you've seen it on YouTube. Maybe you've never heard of this at all, but we'll begin by saying it's real, and their presence is a real problem. Kentucky Division of Fisheries, one of the nation's leading experts on Asian carp, Ron Brooks is my guest. We will go inside outdoors to discuss it all. Next on Kentucky Afield Radio.
Kentucky's Nature and Wildlife Fund. You see it as a contribution option when you prepare your state tax return. But you also see it as songbirds and wildflowers. You can see it in clear, flowing streams. Sometimes it's so secluded you may never see it at all. But if you only see it on your PC as you prepare your taxes, that's good too. Google it and see the difference this fund makes. Kentucky's Nature and Wildlife Fund, the natural tax shelter.
In high school, I got my license and my first license plate, a nature plate. Now that I'm in college, it's still my choice, because year by year, these plates save more and more. More rich forests, more clean flowing streams, more of what we all want to hold on to for our future. If it's the wildcat, cardinal, or the butterfly plate, next time you renew, do like me. Say nature's finest and pick the plate that keeps our bluegrass green.
You're listening to Kentucky Afield Radio. I'm Charlie Baglin, and going to talk a little bit about a big fish that's causing some big problems. And Ron Brooks, director of the Kentucky Division of Fisheries. Welcome to the show, Ron.
Thank you, Charlie.
Back in December, about a month ago, maybe a little bit more,
right,
you got together at Kentucky Dam Village to address the issue of Asian carp with the locals. Is that right? So how did that work? You were seeking public input on how to deal with this problem.
Right. We're thinking about a couple regulation changes, and every now and then I like to go out there and at least once a year and let the public know where we're at with Asian carp and what we're trying to get accomplished and how much progress we've made. And in this case, it was really also for this regulatory process that we're going to have to go through to get some issues with moving Asian carp around unintentionally or intentionally.
What is, I guess before we get in too deep, what is the minute message on Asian carp for anyone who may not know? Right.
Asian carp, of course, invaded our waters or were allowed to invade our waters in the 70s when they were brought over here for culture during the flood process. And since that time, they have almost systematically or methodically gone up the Mississippi River, and they're now in all of our major Mississippi River tributaries, including the Ohio River.
So the point of entry for this fish was the Mississippi?
Yes.
Along Arkansas, as I recall?
Right. They were brought into Arkansas for the catfish aquaculture facilities, but I'm told they were also brought into Illinois for some research on some tertiary treatment plants for municipalities, and Missouri.
Did they also escape from these other areas in Illinois and Missouri?
That's what I'm told. I'm told that there were a couple of those research facilities that there were some breaches, and they got out there as well as Arkansas.
I would imagine that a big rain can spell havoc, whatever you're doing. If that was the culprit, I don't know.
Right.
But I remember back in the 90s, there were some major rains, and one of your fish hatcheries, the Peter Pfeiffer Fish Hatchery in Franklin County, suddenly was flooded.
Right.
And the whole area became a lake, and catfish were everywhere.
That's exactly what it was. In the Arkansas fish ponds and aquaculture facilities are very low in terms of sea level. They're really in the river bottom itself, the original river bottom. And so when the Mississippi River floods, which it often does down there, it pretty much trades fish with the aquaculture folks.
Let me read a quote from a press release that was recent. Asian carp threaten native fish species because they can outcompete them for forage. Asian carp also threaten Kentucky ecological systems, Recreational boaters, anglers, and commercial and sport fishing industries are also threatened. Asian carp not only are prolific, but they can adapt and live in almost any river or lake in Kentucky.
Yes.
It sounds like we're doomed.
Well, we are unless we start trying to take some control measures. These fish can outcompete. They're very, what we call fecund. They have a lot of eggs. They can spawn year-round, almost, 9 months of the year, depending upon whether or not there's flowing water for the eggs to mature. So, yeah, it's a big problem, and in fact, it's become a major problem in the lower states because nobody's done anything yet. The federal government has had all their sights on the Great Lakes to keep them out of the Great Lakes, spent $200 million up there. Not one penny has gone to a non-Great Lake state to address this issue.
Well, here's an obvious question. They don't have this problem in Asia. What is it there that's keeping them in check?
They're over-harvested. The Chinese pretty much have over-harvested all their lakes and reservoirs. They are a big culture species there. The culture fish are not nearly as robust as they are here. And so the Chinese aren't as interested in them over there anymore as they are getting fish from a wild river is what they're looking for. Mm-hmm. And so it's almost a specialty item, even though they've cultured these things for 2,000 years or more. These fish, when they come from the Mississippi River, it's almost like us thinking in terms of a pristine mountain stream and getting some nice salmon, you know. It's just a much better product.
This sounds to me like then commercial fisheries should jump on this, and I want to go there at some point in this conversation, but we started the conversation by saying at Kentucky Dam Village you had a meeting.
Right.
You had locals there. People support what they help to create. Do you have people that show up to these saying, well, you, Kentucky Division of Fisheries, you don't know what you're doing. Here's what you need to do. And as emotional as they may be, some suggestions just may really not apply, or do you see people coming to the table with, here's some legitimate things you should consider?
Right.
Well, what are you hearing at these meetings?
Of course, you hear a little of both. I mean, you hear all kinds of comments, anywhere from you're not doing nothing or anything, or to, here's what you ought to be doing, like you're saying. In the end, that's why we have these meetings, so that we can inform them of the issues, and we answer their questions, of course, in an open forum. And basically, we are to a point like on our two bigger reservoirs out west, Kentucky and Barkley Lakes, we're to a point where the public just wants to know what can be done. So we throw ideas at them that we're going to be or doing or are doing, and then they ask their questions, and we try to answer them the best we can. But they're not as confrontational as they used to be, as far as, where they're beating the drums about trying to make us get to do something, like as if we didn't know what the problem was. Now it's more, there is a little bit of that, what can we do in terms of the anglers. The anglers and the commercial fishermen have not gotten together well for many years. There's always been a conflict there, but now the anglers are ready to more embrace the commercial fishermen because they can help us take care of that problem.
What kind of turnout did you have at the meeting?
It was very light. I was very disappointed. There was probably less than 50 people there.
Well, was that a representative sample? If you had 500 people, would the comments have been generally the same, you think? I
think we'd have got more of a broad variety, kind of like what we covered earlier, as far as you're not doing enough or you're not doing anything to, we've got better ideas, here's what you should be doing type of thing. But I'd embrace that, because that's kind of what I want when I go to these meetings. I want to be able to discuss with them, what the experts are, if you will, what we're trying to do. So, was there a top issue that came about? Well, the whole issue really is, at least for that meeting, was for the problem of moving the fish around. That was the bottom line. That was my last thing that I talked about at the meeting, so that we could discuss it. Small Asian carp look a lot like shad, which is a very popular bait item in Kentucky. They look a lot like skipjack. And so when a person goes down, like below, let's say, Kentucky Dam, and takes their dip net and picks up some fish, then all of a sudden there's going to be Asian carp in there. And they don't know it because they don't take the time to look, and a lot of people don't even know the difference of what they look like. And the problem is they're going to move those fish, potentially, maybe they want to go to Lake Cumberland, and so they know that area is a good place to get easy bait. And so now there's a chance that they're going to take these things into a lake that doesn't have Asian carp.
We're going to have to talk more about this in our next segment.
Okay.
Ron Brooks is the Director of Fisheries in Kentucky, and we are talking about the Asian carp situation up and down our river systems and in many of our lakes. We'll be back to talk more. This is Kentucky Afield Radio. Welcome back to Kentucky Afield Radio. My name's Charlie Baglin, and Ron Brooks, the Director of the Kentucky Division of Fisheries, is here with me, and we're talking about the Asian carp situation. And Ron, this is in the Ohio River. This is in the Mississippi. It's in our western Great Lakes. I guess you could call it the Lake Barkley and Kentucky Lake.
Right.
And it's moving around, and we want to stop. And one way to control this to a degree is people are moving these Asian carp and not even knowing they're doing it.
Right.
And you were saying that the small, can you call them the fingerling, the bait
right.
size?
Young of the years, yeah.
Asian carp look just like typical baitfish, shad,
yes.
skipjack, or look enough like them that it's easily confused. And you could have a dip net full of mostly shad, but mixed in there are a few of the bad guys.
Right.
And you have a regulation out there that you're trying to get changed to control that. Can you explain it?
Right. Basically, we'll be proposing that regulation in February at our committee meeting. There's two regulations. One is to restrict all movement of live Asian carp. And I don't think anybody's going to have a problem with that one. But the other one is restricting movement of bait fish from one body of water to another body of water. And what that will mean is that, unfortunately, a guy won't be able to go to a stream and get his bait fish and then take them up to a lake and then fish for them. There's possible that we'll have some adjustments to that regulation to make it more palatable. Perhaps, identify fish that don't look like Asian carp at all and take them out of that restriction. But those are the kind of things that can be discussed at our committee meeting if folks want to discuss that.
People would have to say, I'm doing the wrong thing, but I'm not meaning to do the wrong thing.
Right.
And in years past, there's never been a problem with me catching my shad in one body of water and
right.
releasing them in another.
Right.
That's been perfectly fine. They're present in both bodies of water anyway.
Right.
Are they welcoming this, embracing this, or is it going to cause any hardship? Does that come up at your public meeting at Kentucky Dam?
It did not at the Kentucky Dam meeting, and part of that was because the crowd that we needed to have there wasn't really there. The guides weren't there, for instance. In other states, I can tell you it's a big issue. They have tried to do the same thing that we're going to try to do, and they've had a lot of pushback because of people that like the guides, and not only the guides, but other people too, who feel like that they're going to be very restricted from being able to do the kind of fishing they want to do. The bottom line is, though, we had thought about identifying bodies of water, that we know already have Asian carp. Like, why not let them go to the Kentucky Lake tailwater and take them up in the Kentucky Lake? They're full of them in Kentucky Lake. The problem there is that these things, through flooding and whatnot, have new ranges every year. They move naturally, because of your spring water flooding, for instance. They find new avenues to new streams, and we don't even know where all these things are. There's too many streams in Kentucky. We can't be everywhere to verify their presence or not presence. So that's why we have to make it such a blanket rule. We're
talking with Ron Brooks, Director of the Kentucky Division of Fisheries, about Asian carp and their proliferation in western Kentucky and radiating out from there. And you mentioned the regulation change. There is also something right now in the House and Senate
right.
that could prove helpful. Senate House bills, the Ohio River Asian Carp Action Team.
Yeah, those are two separate things, but the bills have been introduced in both the Senate and the House, and those bills, there's an Asian Carp Management Plan, a National Asian Carp Management Plan. It was accepted or approved in 2007, but it was never funded by Congress. And so since I've been here in early 2010, we've been going to Washington, D.C. and trying to get Congress to authorize that funding for that plan. And what that plan does, it allows for education. It allows to attack leading edges of where these fish are, and it allows control mechanisms. But it's a very expensive plan. It's about $20 million a year. As
for, let's say it passes, and what immediate benefit can we see besides a sigh of relief?
Right. We will be getting funding probably through what's called MICRA, the Mississippi Interstate Cooperative Resource Agencies, which is the Mississippi River Basin states. We'll be getting funding through them to use as we probably deem necessary. In Kentucky, we have a leading edge problem that we're trying to keep these things from getting in Pennsylvania, which is that action group that you were talking about, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But we would also have a new processing plant coming up in Wickliffe, Kentucky, something we've been trying to do for 2 years. Money from Congress could help us facilitate those folks getting to fish and expanding their operations in Kentucky, so we can get more control measures on the water. We could incentivize commercial fishermen to some degree. I don't mean subsidize, I mean incentivize. And so, the money will go a long way to hitting all aspects. People need to be educated more on this stuff, even though we've tried to do quite a bit with that, and it's a very difficult issue, but those are the kind of things that that kind of funding would do.
Is the result of this going to be wiping Asian carp out or neutralizing the situation to a degree where we can live with it?
B. You're never going to eradicate these things. They're kind of like the common carp. The common carp were brought in I believe around the 30, or actually it might have been the 1800s even. But they were brought over for sport fish species, and they were very popular with the Europeans back then. And they were spread like crazy. Once you get them, you're not going to get rid of them.
You're the director of the Division of Fisheries for a reason. I believe it is because you are very knowledgeable, to put it lightly, about this subject. I'm going to sit here and say, Ron Brooks, you are one of the leading experts in the subject of Asian carp. What's the minute message about your experience with these, going back a few years?
Right. I, of course, came from Southern Illinois University. I did a lot of work with them back starting around 2003. When everybody started, they had everybody's attention back then. So done a lot of work with them back then, and basically they followed me over here, I guess you might say. So I have had a lot of experience with them, and it's a good thing. I feel kind of blessed that I did, because otherwise I'd be up a creek without a paddle.
If I wanted to open a jewelry store, and I heard that Kentucky has just found they have diamond mines, man, you wouldn't believe the diamond mines they have in Kentucky, and we didn't know this until 2003.
Right.
And I wanted to open a jewelry store, guess where I would go? That same type of scenario should play into, there is a commercial market for these Asian carp. It's a delicious fish, as I understand.
Yeah, it is.
Are you having any overtures from the commercial fishing industry to come in and say, we can help?
Yeah, I mean, it's the industry. I mean, the commercial fishermen are willing to do it. The businesses that are cropping up everywhere for this thing. They get a lot of pushback from actually the federal government, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is not interested in creating a market for an invasive species. They are interested in eradication. The problem is we know we're not going to eradicate them, and we also know if we don't do anything with them, they're going to be everywhere. And which is kind of interesting, because their argument is that once we get a market going and we start overfishing them, like we hope to do, people are going to be intentionally move these things around so that there'll be other fish around.
And create more markets.
But the dichotomy is that they're going to be there anyway. If we do use their way, which is the way everybody's been doing for the last 2 decades, you can see what's going to happen. I mean, it's happened in Illinois right now. There's so many of them up there right now. They're becoming emaciated. They're overpopulated. And you can imagine what that does to their native populations. Well, that's what's happening in Kentucky. We can do nothing. We can say it's a lost battle. Let's just keep them from spreading. But what does that do for the southern half of the United States?
We can probably close out this segment simply by asking if there are people listening now that do have comments that they would want to make, or suggestions, or just to give their 2 cents worth.
Right.
How can they reach you? How can they reach the right person? Do you have a phone number, an email, a website? How does all that work?
I generally tell people just to email me. It's the easiest way. I'm not always in my office, and, emails are a little bit convenient that way. It's ron.brooks@ky.gov. Pretty easy to remember.
ron.brooks@ky.gov.
Right.
That'll get to you.
Yep.
Well, Ron, I know you have your hands full, and I wish you very well in the House bills and the Senate bills and the science and the legwork that it's going to take to make a difference. But I have a feeling we're under pretty decent leadership in this.
Well, I appreciate that. I'll do my best.
And what we need to remember, again, is this isn't just a local problem. This is a 28-state area. In our next half hour, I want to get with Director Brooks and ask him about the Asian Carp Management Team, other fish and wildlife agencies, other folks in his position that have come together to try to make a difference not just in our waters, but in Washington. This is Kentucky Afield Radio. You are listening to Kentucky Afield Radio. My name is Charlie Baglin, and let me ask you, have you ever had a thorn in your side? A mother-in-law, for example. Someone who likes to nag, and just won't go away. So the best you can do is just find a way to live with it. Ron Brooks, who is the Kentucky Division of Fisheries, has just such a thorn, and it's called Asian carp. Bringing the best minds together to combat the problem continues in this half hour. This is Kentucky Afield Radio. First, our fishing report. I'm Charlie Baglin. This is Kentucky Afield Radio. Congress goes fishing, and what experts hope they will catch after the break.
In a world ruled by ducks, duck hunters take note. Statistics show that each year, more hunters die from drowning than from gun mishaps.
Hey, Larry, let's get started. The ducks are waiting.
I know. I just feel like I forgot something.
No, we got it all. Guns, shells. What'd you say?
That wasn't me.
We got the boat, hot coffee. What could we possibly be missing?
Duck season is upon us, and the law requires that hunters have a life jacket for each person in the boat. It's also a good idea to wear them. In the cold waters of duck season, a fall overboard can cause your muscles to stiffen, making it nearly impossible to swim or stay afloat. And that's before hypothermia sets in. So bring and wear your
life jackets. That's what we forgot.
A message from your Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife.
You're listening to Kentucky Afield Radio. I am Charlie Baglin, happy to be with you today. We have an astute individual, and I say that because you have to laugh even despite a desperate situation, but his name is Ron Brooks. He is the director of the Kentucky Division of Fisheries, and you have been in that position since 2009, and I wish your job could be easier.
Right.
You have 9,000 miles of fishable streams and uncountable number of publicly owned lakes, and they're all great places for a great pastime. People love to fish.
Yeah, we have some of the best fishing in Kentucky in the country, believe it or not. So,
but you have a thorn in your side that's called Asian carp, and it's not just a thorn, it's a big thorn. Right. It's a dude.
Right.
And it's not going to go away. And unfortunately, it's your baby.
Yeah.
And it's not just your baby, but there is the Asian Carp Management Team.
Right.
And that's Ron Brooks is up and down the valley in Missouri, Arkansas. Tell me a little bit more about the goals and how this management team is doing its job.
Okay, we formed this in September. Actually, we had our first meeting in Frankfurt, a 2-day meeting. It is made up of fisheries directors from pretty much all of the Ohio River Basin states. Well, at least you might call us the executive staff anyway, because it's going to be made up of a lot of corporate or entities. We got together because we knew we had to do something about the Asian carp problem. We knew we was making headways in Congress through the micro work we've done in terms of getting their attention on this issue. When Congress starts moving, we need to be sure we have a plan in place so that when they say, okay, we got your funding for you, well, now what are you going to do with it, we can outline that in a plan. So we got together in September to get a draft plan for what we're calling the Ohio River Asian Carp Action Plan. And it's a plan that's a kind of an offshoot from the National Asian Carp Management Plan, but it's just more regionally developed. So, we have a little bit fewer issues to have to deal with. So we're putting this draft plan together. We're getting it basically agreed upon amongst us and all the biologists in our states. And then we're going to open it up to NGOs across the state.
NGO, what's that mean?
Non-government organizations like bass clubs, muskie clubs, whoever is interested in doing something about Asian carp.
It sounds to me, Ron, like what you're doing is putting a face on the problem. It's not just the face of a nation, it's the face of this community, this region of the state, this region of the nation. You're personalizing it.
Right.
And when you do that, then you can't help but take note a little more keenly.
Right.
Is that what's happening with our elected officials to help get them in to help with this?
It really is. I went to Washington the first year and I talked about an Asian carp problem in the Mississippi River Basin, I got a lot of deer in the headlight looks. It's like, well, it's a big basin, what can I do? Now, when we started talking about getting more focused on the Ohio River and our issues in particular, there were obviously particular representatives that were very concerned about it. Now it's in their backyard. Now we're talking about what these fish are doing to them, to their constituents. So it did take a leg as soon as we started taking that approach. That helped a lot.
I feel like I ought to at least say this isn't the first battle Kentucky has had with exotic invasive species. That's $1.50 word by saying something that's coming here, taken over, shouldn't have been here in the first place, like starlings,
right,
like dandelions, like kudzu we see a lot of in the forest eastern Kentucky. It's terrible.
Right.
But Asian carp is just another of these. We have not eradicated it. We have learned to live with it. We have our work cut out for us.
Right.
I wonder if exotic invasives will ultimately win the battle or if they will not. Are we learning anything from our battles with these other plants and diseases? And are there still certain lines of thought you can glean from how we've worked with other problems to help us with this one?
Yeah, as far as the control, of course, goes, it depends upon what species and whether it's a plant or a fish or an animal or, the major thing we've learned is that we have to be more careful about what we allow in the states. I would have thought that would have been learned a long time ago, but I think everybody's more aware of that right now in a broader sense. The key is keeping them out. Once you got them, you got them. In the case of Asian carp, being a fish and needing to live in the aquatic environment, we do have control measures, and if we are able to at least control these things, then their impacts will actually be fairly minimal. So that's the goal with this species. The commercial fishing industry can outfish or overfish anything. So
that's the best news I've heard about this in my tenure, that it could be minimal.
Right.
You're trying to keep this out of the Great Lakes. Why do you want to keep it out of the Great Lakes? Why has that been the barrier?
The Great Lakes is a tremendous economy. The first meeting I went to was in Indiana to try to get attention for the lower states on this. And after talking with those folks and understanding that all the funding was going to the Great Lakes, I went back and I started looking at the maps. And when you look at the size of the Great Lakes versus even the whole Mississippi River Basin, and you think about the economy of the Great Lakes, it's huge. It's much bigger than we can't hold a candle to it. And so that's why it's so important up there. And the Great Lakes, they have a finite amount of food. And you get an Asian carp in there that's going to take out the primary sources of food, it could devastate that whole industry. So it's a huge problem.
So we are working on something now that you're calling the leading edge. You're trying to keep these fish. If you keep them in Kentucky, then so be it. But at least they are out of the Great Lakes and they are stopping their northward progression.
Right.
Or they're stopping because they are going up into tributaries in every state, Missouri and Arkansas and you name it, Illinois, that feed the Ohio and the Mississippi River systems.
Right.
So I'm going to make it plural, where are the leading edges? Right.
In the Ohio River, they probably have a few in Pennsylvania right now. The point is that if we get on this quick enough and stop that leading edge from moving further up the Ohio, they'll probably not be able to establish a population with a few numbers that are up there right now. I got to talk in a pretty specific sense because you hit that nail on the head. They go up every tributary of every big river there is. So when we talk about a leading edge, we're talking about a major leading edge. If we can keep them from going further up the Ohio, then they're going to get in fewer tributaries, and maybe Pennsylvania will never have our problem. That if we did attack it this way 10 years ago, we might not have them in Louisville right now because of the pools, the way the dams are set up and stuff. Illinois has been very successful in a program where they contracted commercial fishermen to go up and do nothing but try to catch Asian carp. It didn't matter whether they caught them or not; they were still going to get paid. It was a contractual thing for time, and they've successfully kept Asian carp from moving up even close to the barrier that's up there, that big electric barrier that's up there. And so it can be done. And so that we're experimenting with that right now. We're going to start in the Greenwood Pool.
In Wickliffe, Kentucky, you have a facility that Kentucky should be proud of. You have, among other things, an individual there who has a strong connection to the country of China. That may sound weird, but tell me how China figures into this.
China is huge right now because we have no domestic market for these things yet. Nothing's ever been developed. It will be, but it's slow in developing. China is huge because they want them. They want these fish bad. It's a big ticket item for them. It's a high-end product when it comes out of the Mississippi River Basin.
They want them for table fare.
Yes.
They don't want them in their rivers and streams. They want them on their plates.
Exactly. And they'll pay top dollar for them over there.
It's rainbow trout to them.
It is. And remember, this has been a favorite fare for them for thousands of years. So
it seems like Asian carp should be plentiful there, but they're not?
No, they overharvested Asian carp years ago. Between overharvest and the fact that the rivers are really polluted over there. It looks a lot like our rivers during the Industrial Revolution, before any regulations came out. Very poor water quality, and so their fish will taste like that. And that's what makes the Mississippi River fish to them so interesting. It's such a clean river in relation to what they have.
I can see the point. No, I have not been to China.
I haven't either.
And you have not. But I certainly know what a dirty river looks like.
Right.
And you see those in flood season around Kentucky that they're thick and they're just brown. And
right.
How could anything live in this? But that's what they have 24/7, 365, you say.
The difference is their effluent is not from natural wash-off. Their effluent is from factories, which makes chemicals a big problem. So they've got big issues, intoxicants and stuff like that. So
to go to China, say I'm vacationing in Beijing and I go to the local stream, I'm not going to catch a crappie or a bluegill.
No. The only thing that they probably would have in their rivers right now is what we would consider really rough fish, like a common carp or something like that.
So at the end of the day, they want good fish to eat.
Right.
And we are a very viable source.
It's interesting because we have the very fish they love to eat, and it's growing in our pristine, quote-unquote, waters. And so we have exactly what they want. Now, it's a tight market. They're not paying what we would like to see them pay for the fish coming out of the river. But it's a market, and they're willing to buy it.
I want to hear more about the Wycliffe facility when we come back. We have one more segment, and I trust you can hang around.
Oh, sure.
Okay, we're talking with Ron Brooks. He is the Kentucky Division of Fisheries Director. We're discussing the Mississippi River Basin and the Asian carp that have sort of come in and take over. We'll be back. We've got another segment with Ron, so stay with us. My name is Charlie Bagland, and you are listening to Kentucky Afield Radio. You're listening to Kentucky Afield Radio. Charlie Bagland along with Ron Brooks, Director of Fisheries, the Division of Fisheries. He's with the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife, and talking to a man here who's got his plate full with Asian carp. 70% of your time is spent with this.
I'd say approximately, yes.
And we've got a lot of fish. I had a note, 230 species of fish in this state. Now, if each one of those fish got 70% of your time, you couldn't get the job done.
I'll tell you what, it'd be nice though.
if it were all catfish and striped bass and walleye and crappie, you would be a happy individual.
I would. I'd be in paradise.
But these fish are dudes. How big are they?
The silvers, the ones that jump, they can get over 70 pounds. The big head, they can get over 110 pounds, and they grow very fast.
Most people in the state, I'm just going to come right out and say it, just don't know and don't care.
If you don't boat where these things are or fish, then you really probably aren't in tune to it. I wouldn't expect a person who didn't hunt to know anything about hunting, you know.
Right.
But it goes beyond the fisherman, for instance. If you're a water skier, pleasure boater, if you like the little ski-doo things, and you're on the water and they're there, you're in trouble. Especially if they have silvers, because silvers jump.
They will jump in your boat.
They'll jump in your boat. They'll hit you. People have had broken bones. All you got to do is get on the internet and Google it or something, and you can just see picture after picture of people getting hit by these things.
How long is a 70-pound silver?
Probably about 48 inches or so. That's off the top of my head.
It's a big fish.
It's a big fish.
It will get your attention.
Yeah. Just
because it doesn't affect you in Pikeville, it does affect you.
Yes. If you do anything on the water where silver carp are, you're going to be affected.
We were talking about Wycliffe, and we have about 5 minutes left in the show. So we're just going to hit some of this. Talking about how pleased you are with the facility at Wycliffe, Kentucky, at the confluence of the Mississippi and Ohio. Talk another minute about that.
Okay, that facility has been laying vacant now for several years, and the Ballard County Economic Development folks out there, Terry Simmons most lately, has been trying to get a business in there. And we have been working with them, and we brought in probably at least a half a dozen people interested in this export market, and they've looked at the facility and they thought they had the funding to get everything to work, but it's a very expensive venture. You got to have flash freezers, big containers. You got to export these things, ship them to China. You got to know what you're doing. And we finally got a person in there. Her name's Angie Yu. She's from China, and she sort of got friends in the right places, you might say, in China. She's very well financially connected with those folks, and as well with the Chinese markets.
That sounds promising.
Yeah, very promising.
And I know that you are doing anything but sitting on your hands with this. For the people that it does affect, I'm sure they're saying, oh, you folks in Frankfurt are doing nothing, or you folks in fisheries, nobody's doing anything.
Right. We go to these meetings and we keep telling them year after year what we're doing, and we keep telling them we think we're seeing progress. And one of the reasons that we said earlier there wasn't very many people at these meetings, I imagine they get tired of hearing what they think is going to be the same old song and dance. But in actuality, this year, especially, we've had a lot of movement. So.
But you had a meeting in December, and you invited folks out, and a lot of those people say, I didn't even know this meeting was going on, and you've done your very best to get the word out, newspaper, news releases.
Right.
But still, they don't know, and I didn't know until Joe told me,
right.
And so I'm here now.
Yeah.
Now, are there going to be any more of these, or if not, I don't want to put you on a spot, but how can people who have something to say it?
Right. They need to come to the meetings. Basically, I'm going to try to have 2 more meetings. One is going to be around Louisville, and the other is probably going to be around Cincinnati area. But the bottom line is, if they miss the meeting and want to know more, we're going to have it on our website, for one thing, the meeting and how it kind of went.
That website is FW, standing for Fish and Wildlife,
right.
.ky.gov.
Right.
Okay. So that would be on the main screen there, the home page
yes.
of where these meetings are going to be.
Yes.
And you're looking for people to come out because you are a public agency.
Right.
You want to know, even though you don't expect somebody to drive up with the answer, but you want to know how it affects them and their suggestions and how they're going to embrace whatever regulation changes
right.
That may come down the pike.
When we have these meetings, they're twofold. There's 2 major reasons for these things. One, we want to tell them about that we know of the issues that they're concerned about, and 2, we want to tell them what we're doing. I guess there's a third. The third thing is we want to discuss it with them. We want to hear their issues on what we're trying to do, like these regulations that we talked about. If they have some reservations about what we're trying to do, let's discuss it, and maybe we can come out with a better regulation in the end.
If you can pick up a pair of binoculars, look into the future, as far as 10 years from now.
I think the Asian carp issue in 10 years is going to be here. But it's going to be something that we'll find that we have a better control over because of the commercial markets. I really do.
Thanks for being on our show. And again, Ron's website, fw.ky.gov.